man speaking in the city square, trying to tell somebody that he cares. Can you blame the voice of youth for asking what is true? Yeah, the ones that you're calling wild are gonna be the leaders in a little while. When will the lonely voice of youth cry, what is true? This our world's waking to a newborn babe, and I solemnly swear it'll be their way. You better help that voice of youth find what is true. And the lonely voice of youth cries, what is true?
All right. Well, welcome to the live stream. I know it's been a while, but I'm back. So that's what matters. We're here now. We're ready to stream. We're going to do it. I am going to talk a little bit about Symbolic World. I'm not going to do a Symbolic World wrap up. We're going to do that on Sunday. We have special guests, special things on Sunday to do that. So that should be exciting. So I want everybody to enjoy and appreciate that. I do have to plan it. I got a thumbnail, I think, ready. So that's good. I had a great time in Tarpon Springs. Tarpon Springs is awesome. Everybody should go to Tarpon Springs at least once. It's a wonderful place. The event was pretty cool. And I am going to tell a story from the event that's going to wrap into other stories. We're going to see how this goes. I don't know how successful I'm going to be. I never know how successful I'm going to be. A lot of stuff happened. And I was sort of struggling. People were asking, like, what's the live stream topic going to be? We need to pick a topic. And then I'm like, that's a stupid idea. We don't need a topic. We need a wrap up of like the month because it's been a long month. Like that's what we need. We need a wrap up. So that took a lot of the pressure off. And then, of course, I did a lot of notes for this stream because, yeah, there's a lot to talk about. And I felt like, yeah, I kind of need to do a lot because there's just tons of stuff happen. So look, we got our Sam Powell, right? We've got our Muppet Cup, very important. I heard that many times in Tarpon Springs, this very saying. So it's spreading. You better get a cup at the shop. Got to have one, especially for this stream because when else are you going to get it? So yeah, that's sort of the important stuff, really. Get a cup. That's the thank you very much. See you. No, I've got some tea here, Carolina Oopsong tea. A little full. That's okay. I like my teacups full. So the fact that I poured too much water into it doesn't bother me at all. And it shouldn't bother you either. And of course, I've got a junkless bar. Got to have one of those. Very important. So yeah, let's get to it. So, like I said, I did go to the summit. We're going to do a wrap-up video probably on Sunday. It's looking like everybody's in for that. I'll get that scheduled and on the channels. And I was doing some reading this past month. Well, listening. I'm listening to audiobooks. And I insist it's not the same thing. It's certainly not the same for me. I'm a visual learner. So it's certainly not the same listening to books rather than actually reading them. I'm also dyslexic. So reading is really hard. But I'm getting better at listening and remembering quotes and remembering, sort of important things. Um, and I heard a lot of important things in my readings. And sort of Dr. Jim got me onto this reading thing while you're driving. I was like, oh yeah, you can listen to audiobooks while you drive, and some of them are free. It sounds right up my alley. So I've been doing a lot of that lately on these trips. I went to Texas, right? Not last weekend, but the weekend before. Came back for 2 days, got in the car, went to Florida. I was in Florida for 7 days. We're back now. So yeah, it's been a long couple of weeks for sure. And so one of the interesting things I've just been finding out a lot of stuff lately, a lot of really interesting stuff, right? Um, Suicide is not illegal in the US anymore. And I was like, wait, what? And it turns out uh, suicide stopped being enforced in the states, in the individual states, because it's individual state laws in the US, in the 1960s. Boy, lots of bad stuff happened in the 1960s. It's like the decade of destruction of the US. And, the beginning of the meaning crisis in the US, right? We sort of lost intimacy in the 60s, partly by redefining love. And Burn Power kind of talks about that in his How We Got Here series on his Anadromous channel. So check that out. Intimacy crisis confirmed, right? So I thought that was important. I mean, I don't want to make this like a news wrap up, but it kind of is. It's kind of fun. Um, and then so we're at the Symbolic World Summit conferencey thing, and it's pretty big. It was bigger than I thought. I'm up in the air about whether or not that's good or bad. A lot of people. And bookstore there, nice little orthodoxy bookstore. And Sally Joe finds this book that's interestingly named Poetic Knowledge by James S. Taylor. I haven't read it yet. I read the first couple pages actually. This is published in 1998. He's using all our words, all of them so far. He's talking about exact same thing, except I would argue it's not knowledge, it's information, different argument. Feeling extremely vindicated. Also, the reason why that was there is because he became a monk. So he's a monk who had written a book, I think before he was a monk. I don't know. I haven't looked into his history quite yet. I just noticed that. I found that. Yeah, he had some weird Orthodox name. All the Orthodox weird names. Weird fetish. Naming fetish, orthodoxy. But it goes back to something that I was talking to Father Eric about over the past week and a half here. People sort of prefer their own solution to an existing solution, right? They don't want somebody else to solve the problem that they found or that they think they found. They want it to be them. They resist an existing solution, right? And for Jonathan Pichot, the solution's simple: go to church. I have my arguments with why that is a solution and why why it won't work for, we'll say, the most important people or the people most in need is probably a better way to say it. And maybe they're also the most important people, right? Like, it doesn't take a lot to bring a society down, and if you don't fix the most vulnerable, the worse off, then maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe the rest doesn't matter. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. So I'll note that, like, we did not do that when we came up with poetic knowing. It wasn't called poetic knowing. It was called parabolic. And I knew, and we acknowledged, uh, because that's what one does, that Mary Cohen had come up with parabolic knowledge. God rest her lovely soul. What a lovely woman. We lost her too early. She had already talked about parabolic knowing. Tried to get John Vervaeke to add it to his knowings. And that work was already there, right? And we knew that, and we acknowledged that, and we talked to her about it, and she was cool. She understood what we were talking about. She agreed with us. It's only John who didn't agree with us. He didn't disagree either, which is an interesting position to hold. I'm not gonna support you and I'm not going to debate you, but I disagree with you. Oh, okay, fair, fair. Um, and you know, if you're not doing that, if you're not sort of acknowledging, hey, there's answers out there already, you're not a great person. It's bad. It's easy to see evil in the world. It really is, right? But we prefer to quote know for ourselves rather than just take someone's word for it, right? Or just take observation, like, oh, this person did a bad thing. After all, we can redeem that evil by ourselves. So that's a problem, right? See the issues here? Yeah, I hope you do. And also, I wanted to cover something too that I didn't really put in my notes. It sort of came up at the end of my day here, just before coming online. There's people out there who are, we'll say, focused on criticizing Jordan Peterson's wardrobe, for example. It's just one example of many. Um, and they're Orthodox or Christian or whatever. I want to be extremely clear about this. Okay, we got real problems. Let me tell you what isn't a real problem in the world. Jordan Peterson's freaking suit. All right. There's enough evil, obviously, running around the world doing evil that everyone would agree was evil that you could call out with your time, energy, and attention. So I suggest that you do that. Okay. If you call out Jordan Peterson's wardrobe and then claim to be a Christian, you are the problem. Now, this isn't directed at anybody who watches my stream. I know none of you would do that. But we could all A, stand the reminder, B, we all transgress and get lost, and C, obviously I needed to get that off my chest. Like, no, you are the problem of the world. There are no other problems with just you. Okay. There's real evil just running around doing evil. Let's focus on that first. Okay. We'll worry about whether or not Jordan Peterson, let's assume he transgressed. I don't care. He's a good person. I can point you at dozens of bad people. Okay. Let's focus on them. Let's not focus on transgressions of good people doing good things in the world. Please, please. Anyway. All right. I'm better now, I think. One of the things that I heard in the conference, Martin Shaw, everybody was wonderful. Martin Shaw was awesome. I didn't really interact with Martin Shaw much before that. Myth is a reciprocally opening story, right? I mean, I think he said, what did he say? It was deeply true or something. That was his theme. And this is why myths are different from stories, right? And neither is a narrative, right? Those are myths, stories, and narratives are all different things. Everybody sort of compresses that. I know Vervaeke and Peugeot and Peterson sort of equivocated on that themselves. But look, I'm just going to drop that there. It was one of the things that I thought people should ponder, maybe reflect on. I have a live stream about that. Of course I do. And I wanted to mention too that many things that are true, right? True things are not impressive, but they're still true, right? And I stole that again from Martin Shaw. And so mediocrity, see my previous live stream, right? It's all there, right? It's all there. Like a lot of true things are not the sorts of things that are going to bowl you over or make you feel like, oh wow. They're just true. And you live them out every day. And maybe you don't enjoy and appreciate them the way you need to, right? The way, say, an Epicurean would. I know our modern view of Epicureanism is retarded and wrong, but the Epicureans had a point about savoring the plain beans or the plain rice that you eat. Yeah, that was their thing, not gourmet food. They were all about contrast. of being stoic about these things, right? So it's all about mediocrity, right? Many true things are not impressive, but they're still true. A lot of people want truth to like save the world or solve a problem, or that ain't gonna happen. I'm sorry, it's just not gonna happen. And one of the sort of themes that I've been chasing down recently is the idea that you have to submit to imperfect authority, imperfect leadership, imperfect institution, imperfect other people, imperfect self, imperfect will, and imperfect passions. All of it is not optimal. It's all necessary but insufficient. The world is complex and it sucks. It's almost as if we're living in a fallen world or something. I don't know. We're just throwing that out there. A lot of our ills in the world are not submitting to the imperfections that we are and that are around us. A lot of evils come from equality doctrine. Equality doctrine makes it a flat world, a horizontal world, right? Things oppose and compete rather than moving up in mutual sacrifice for mutual benefit towards the good. Can't move up, right? We see the church as competing for resources that could be used for hospitals. That's foolishness, right? Hospitals came from churches. Rather than having a church run a hospital, which makes reliably better hospitals, by the way, because we don't know anymore that you can pay caring people, but you cannot pay people to care. This deep asymmetry is a hint that we don't live in a flat world, that there is a default position of down, right? Entropy states in physics clearly things are going to get worse if you don't put energy in to keep them together. Again, see my mediocrity live stream. Wonderful live stream. Wonderful. One of the things I noticed in the Symbolic World Summit, which was interesting, is Peterson tends to give these psychological answers, right? And I have my issues with psychology. First of all, I hate it. Just flat out hate the H word. Yes, for real. Always did. Always did. It's very individualistic by design, by default. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's very individualistic. And it's always about what you can do, right? Or what has been done to you. It's not about how you can relate in the world. There's very little relation, and that's why some of the new internal family systems, which is I'm sure people find assistance with it. Also occultism. So, I'm still a no on occultism. Um, with experience. So yeah, it's a problem, right? It's a problem. It's very individualistic. It turns you inward. And I don't think Peterson's doing it on purpose. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, right? I'm just saying, always gives this psychological first answer. Well, psychologically, let me translate what you said to psychological speak. I know, don't. Let's get to the bottom of something instead of talking about psychology. But one of the nice things, and I thought this was fantastic, one of the topics they brought up, and we all cheered, was Father Eric and Adam, who we've seen on my channel. She flew all the way in from Ireland. And Sally Joe and I cheered. They said sacrifice. I'm like, yes, we're talking about sacrifice. Finally, this is fantastic. Best conference ever. Not really. Convivium's still better. But I was happy to hear that talk. Um, I think the only problem I had with it, I would prefer they call it trade-off. Uh, Sacrifice is Christian language. Trade-off is secular language. Uh, the secular people will have an easier time talking about trade-offs the minute you say sacrifice. Their brains shut off. Mostly because they're narcissistic, but other reasons too. Christian language in general is hard for people who aren't there, right? They don't have eyes to see yet or ears to hear, or however you want to frame that. It's hard for them. It really is. And another theme that sort of came up while I was listening to Getty Lee's My Effin' Life. What a fascinating book. Um, Getty Lee is, Rush, right? He's like the band. It's him and Alex, really. Long story. Read the book or listen to the book like I did. Uh, Interesting stuff in there. One of the things that came up though was about leadership, which I found fascinating. It was a throwaway line in the book, really, from the perspective of somebody reading or listening. He kind of cast leadership as well. I was trying to make my own decisions about how I want to be in my life, and my mother kept telling me um, to be a leader. But every time I made a decision for myself, she would get upset at me. And I was like, what do you think leadership is, bro? Like, that's deeply confusing. Leadership is not selfish decision making. Leadership is not deciding for yourself. Leadership, by the way, I stole this from Sally Joe, don't tell her. Leadership is protecting the weak at your own cost. It is diminishing yourself for the purpose of helping those lesser than you because you have more. It could be more of anything. It could be more money, right? Does it have to be more intelligence? It could be more physical strength. It could be just more intelligence, right? I used to do that. I can tell you a quick little story. I used to be on an online system where we typed a lot. It wasn't a voice system. It was type only. And it was a Boston channel. I was ostensibly from Boston, kind of. And somebody came in, obviously from Harvard, and started crapping on people there. Now, look, I used to jokingly call this particular channel the Unwed Mothers Club. This was not full of Boston's best and brightest. Still wonderful people. I learned to dance with these people. Say I love them dearly, but not exactly highbrow, not high income, not middle class. Let me put it that way. Not above middle class. Like but they're my friends. They were good. Most of them were good people. There were a few like really like whoa. There were a few drug dealers. There were a few good drug dealers. There was one very bad drug dealer. That happens. But they were my peeps, and I hung with them for real. And this guy comes in, and he's, well, I've got more degrees than anybody here, and I'm like, actually, you don't, because I knew somebody who had 3 degrees, and he clearly did not. He hadn't. He had maybe finished 1 2-year degree in something, but he was about his 3rd year at Harvard or something. Um, and I could tell. No, I could for real. And he just started going off on people, and I got angry. And I took him apart. I mean, I took him apart. Like, if you've ever seen Good Will Hunting, I did that to him. I just completely eviscerated him. And he was like, "How did you know I was from Harvard?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know Harvard speak a mile away. If you're talking Harvard, I can hear it. Believe me." It's very distinctive. The 2-cent words they use are very, very easy to understand, very easy to spot in a crowd. To some extent, that's leadership, right? When the weak people feel protected, there's good leadership. When the weak do not, there's poor leadership or bad leadership. Period. It's that simple, guys. It really is. Leadership cannot be given or conveyed. It must be earned by your sacrifice, by your trading off what you have, time, energy, attention, plus whatever skill or thing, could be strength, could be articulation, it could be big vocabulary, it could be, raw intelligence, however you want to define that, or smartness, whatever you want to, cleverness, whatever you want to protect the weak. You have to give that up, right? Leadership is larger than a person. That means a person in leadership doesn't have to know if someone else is good at leadership. The job filters by itself. We don't live in a perfect world. I think I mentioned that earlier. And so this does go awry quite often where leadership filters don't work. Like, people get elected to offices that clearly don't belong there. That happens all the time at every level of government. I don't know why I'd have to say that, but apparently I do. But it is a filter, right? Like bad leaders kind of show up in the job and then you go, oh, he was a bad leader. Sure. And those who are good at leading will take leadership. They will be followed automatically. And those who have done it and you know, want to move on to other things, which is most people, because leadership is a pain and it's a sacrifice, they'll step aside. They'll nearly always step aside. Uh, this whole holding on to power thing, it happens, but it's rare. It's rare. And when people don't step aside, it's most often, not always, again, we live in an imperfect world, it's because there's no one to take their place and they know it. The thing they built or the thing they participated in keeping revivified will fail without them because there isn't a strong enough person to take it over. Okay? It's not the old generation has to hand it to the new generation. No, that's wrong. You're just wrong about that. That's not how it works. Not ever. Every once in a while, most of the time, you need to be a good leader. And if you don't know how, fair enough. I get that. Like I get that. That happens. That can happen. That will happen. That is happening. Right? And that's a problem. I thoroughly agree. But don't be thinking like, oh, the boomers gotta like relinquish. No, no, no. You need to be a leader and you need to step into that place. And if you can't, that's fine, but stop whining. And stop whining at the people doing the work. Right? Find somebody who can replace them and support that person in the way that you can by sacrificing what you can for the leader to lead. Because that's the other problem. Leaders can't exist in a vacuum. Nobody steps up and goes, I lead. No, with no followers, leaders are worthless. Be a good follower if you want good leaders. So now I think I teased this correctly. I'm going to talk about a story that happened at the summit. And that's going to, it's tied into a bunch of stuff. I'm going to try to weave this together correctly. I don't know if I can pull it off. So we'll find out. And then I will address all the chatter. I have read all the chatter, believe me. So there's a Q&A at the end of the event here with, pretty much everybody on stage, right? There's Peugeot and Neil deGrade and Vesper Stamper and Martin Shaw and Nicholas Kotar. Like everybody's up there pretty much, except Peterson. He had already left. And we've got this Q&A. And there's all these patterns that arise as a result of these events. They're all united, yet they're separate experiences that aren't connected in any way other than, we'll say, through this thread of meaning. We'll call it the thread of meaning. The Q&A wasn't as structured as it could have been. We live in an imperfect world. There are things people did not expect that were about to happen. They were unprepared, as were we all. So I come up with a question. Now, look, I'm not going to pretend like I had some earth-shattering question that would have changed the course of the conference, right? But I did have a curiosity. I do have an agenda. I don't know why I'd have to say that, but like I'm doing a thing, right? My focus is on meaning crisis people. Most of the people go to Symbolic World are not meaning crisis people. The meaning crisis people won't come within 10 feet of that place. For reasons. I think I understand what they are. I could be totally wrong, by the way. And I'd love to have debates about it with people who might be interested in understanding this better. But if you don't want it, that's fine too. Like I'm not, whatever. As I had this question, I've formulated it as a concise question. At first, I didn't want to make it a concise question. I wanted to make it a treaty on a bunch of stuff, right? With a bunch of framing. And I said, no, you can do this. You can do this pretty concisely and make it a nice, tight question. So I did that. Now, I'm on my way up to ask this question. And I get past, and I don't walk slowly. I get passed by a person wearing a skirt. Now, we can object if you'd like to my framing. I'm going to tell you why. Ostensibly a male wearing, quote, a kilt. Okay. You're not Scottish. Okay. And it's not a ritual event. Okay. You're wearing a skirt, dude. Period. End of statement. Full stop. Sorry. Just the way the world is. Don't shoot the messenger. Okay. And he's running. Like, what are you doing? Why are you running? What's going on? So he doesn't want to be a man. Whatever. It is what it is. So soapbox over. So he passes me. He passes a bunch of other people, right? So he can speak ahead of other people. And he just ran right past me. And I didn't see him until he was basically moving past me, zooming past me, really. And I never get to ask my question. Unfortunately, I'm not mad. Whatever. It's not a big deal. I submit to imperfect structures. It's really not a problem or anything. Um, Now he ends up getting to ask his question, and he's basically prattling on about his prophetic vision that the Catholics and Orthodox churches have to unite into one church before the kingdom of God can manifest, or some such nonsense like that. You know, it was a very long, solipsistic exploration of his own vision of the churches as brothers. And it could have been a simple question, but no, it was wrapped up in his own self aggrandizement. It was all about him. I bet he didn't notice. Jonathan Joe stepped up, gave a wonderful answer. Richard Rowland, of course, did an even better job. Go be saints. Yes, that is always the answer. At least try to, right? That's the answer to anything. Go be a saint. Stop looking for other people to do these things. You do them. And yeah, you can't be president or, be in Congress or whatever you think is going to move the world. But you can move the world where you live. One of the things that Martin Shaw said that I found very interesting that I thought was excellent was be famous for 5 miles. There you go. Do that. You can handle that, maybe. I mean, I bet you can't, but you could aspire to that, and maybe you could do it. You ain't going to be president. Sorry, not happen. So let me tell you two stories from that. Right, I'll start with the sort of the worst story first. I'm using that language sort of deliberately, right? So, having been passed by a script person, um, questions are going pretty well, right? They're going quickly, but then they sort of slow down a bit, right? We're running out of time. I'm three people back. John Hers, who is the MC, right, says, "Guys, I got to cut you off," and he's looking at me, right? I'm the cutoff guy, and I shrug, and I'm like, "Okay, no problem." And then he looks at me and he says, "Sorry, man, I'll make it up to you." And I'm like, "No, no worries. It's not a big deal." And then he notices a woman behind me. I don't know how far behind me she was, right? And he looks upset and he says, oh, I'm sorry, you got cut off in that other Q&A." And I was like, "What? What's going on?" I am not aware of this. I wasn't in that session. I haven't seen. In fact, I hadn't seen the woman at all. She was behind me. I didn't even know. I knew there was a woman there because he said so, but I hadn't looked at her. Um, so he felt bad. So I said immediately, I said, "Kick one of the guys out of line and let her go." Why? Why would I do that? I'm already out, by the way. I'm already out. I don't care. I'm already out. But no one was taking leadership. And look, I'm not critiquing the summit. It went great. Okay. But no one was taking leadership. Okay. And second, according to John Hers, like I don't know John Hers. This is the first time I've heard him speak. By the way, he's awesome. Totally in love with the guy. I think he's great. Should be at every event just because he's fantastic. Um, he thought there was a transgression that needed fixing, right? And third, I knew Skirt Person, was going to be a problem. This was before he asked his question. I knew he was going to be a problem. He was already a problem. He was running up to the thing. So what ended up happening was she had an accent, she soft voice, very quiet. Someone got out of line, or maybe John kicked somebody out. I don't know. I left. I was like, all right, go do this thing. I'm out of here. I'm going to go sit down. Right. So I don't know if Nate Heil was actually standing in front of me. I don't know if Nate sat down or John kicked him out of line or whatever. I don't know what happened. Script person goes up, a mess, complete catastrophe. She comes up, they can't hear her, so they ask her to come up on stage. Now, watch the video if you can. Martin Shaw immediately gets up from his chair and vacates it. That's what a man does. That's how you show leadership, just so we're clear. Okay. She got up on stage and she got to sit down. And if you listen carefully, I was there, so it's easy for me. Her voice gets stronger. She gets more clear, and she's able to ask her excellent question, which really wasn't a question, but was kind of a question. She made it into a question. It was okay. It worked out in the end. Total win. Best thing I did at that conference. Total win. I'm glad it happened that way. So again, this script person is talking about his prophetic vision of which brothers in the Bible the Catholic and Orthodox churches were, and he was afraid it was Cain and Abel, and all this utter garbage. Utter garbage. Just ask the stupid question. And, the sensible answer for people up on stage is ecumenism is a problem, right? Let me tell you something. Ecumenism is not a problem at all. This is a made up thing that theologians and wannabe theologians and people in the higher up structure are concerned about. No one else cares. Down the street from the conference is St. Michael's Shrine, Healing Shrine, which I'm very happy to go to. Just weird things happened. We'll talk about them on Sunday. Ended up at the shrine with Father Eric. Father Eric is a Catholic priest in his garb, representing pretty well, I assume, the Catholics. And the woman who runs the shrine, old Greek lady, awesome. I love old Greek. I'm part Greek, so the Greeks are my people anyway. Invites all the men up. The women are not allowed behind the thing and whatever, right? And Father Eric says, I'm a Catholic priest. And she doesn't speak a word of English, not clearly anyway. And she basically managed to communicate to him, all brothers in Christ. So he got up and accepted the offer and went in with us, which was lovely. Also, by the way, best shrine ever. You can tell this easily. Swords on the wall. Yes, this is excellent. Love swords. This is how we roll. Christians are for lions. Grab your swords. Grab your swords. Flip over those tables. Come on. Then submit to authority. All of the authorities, by the way. That's how the story goes, in case you missed it. I'm sure you did, because you're not acting that way. Ecumenism is alive and well at the bottom. And this nonsense about churches and liturgies, I don't know, guys. I don't know. I got questions for where your loyalties lie. So to kind of tie all this together, so you can see this one event with lack of leadership, this idea of ecumenism, and people worrying about what are we, not me, we. The we never includes the person saying we, by the way. I've noticed that. Never. Unless it's credit. If it's credit, it's we did it, right? But if it's something that has to get done, we need to do this. They're not going to do any work. I guarantee you that. Just saying. What do we need to do for ecumenism? Yeah, just be nice to the other Christians. It's not a magic. There's no magic. Leadership is not a selfish decision, like Geddy Lee seems to think. The Geddy Lee book. There's so many pieces. I like this about Judaism, but I threw all the rest out because no reason. I just like he didn't list any of the bad parts of religion. He kept talking about it over and over again in the book, 5, 6 times maybe, over and over again. Oh well, I wanted my children to know their history, and his parents were in the camps, by the way. They met in the concentration camps. So you would think, but no, nope, nope, didn't help him at all. Uh, no lessons learned. You think go to church is gonna fix some oh, wait till you hear how he talks about his relationship with his wife too. Oh my goodness. So yeah, it's been quite a while. Look, let me get some water here in my Muppet cup, and then we'll go over whatever chats I missed here. How the hell do we have 30 viewers? My goodness. Thank you. Thank you all for joining. Josh, good to see you. Matthew, nice for you to be back. Could you what is this? Uh Porter, could you explain why this sense making kind of thing is more effective for those who need it most rather than typical Christian evangelizing? Okay, I hate to break it to you. Uh, Evangelism has failed. I don't evangelize, so I don't know what you're talking about. Evangelism failed a long time ago. Everybody knows this, apparently, except you. Just evangelism doesn't work. Christian language is a problem for a bunch of people. Religious language, any religion, is a problem for a bunch of people. Like they can't hear it, or they shut off when they hear it. That happens all the time. So that's a problem. Anselman, Jordan wears Jester's motley. He does. Look again. The point is not what he's wearing or whether or not it's a transgress. Jordan Peterson wore a bad suit and transgressed against whatever. I don't care. Really? That's the biggest problem in the world right now for your time, energy, and attention? That's the biggest problem you have. Let me introduce you to bigger problems. He's wonderfully colorful, very tasteful, and maybe. I don't know if he's tasteful or not. Matthew, I like it. To be fair, JV has hinted at such sacred story describing perennial problems, patterns, navigating patterns, inexhaustibly intelligible and transforming. Uh, he does. He does, but he tends to answer questions or start his statements with these psychological sorts of framings. And here's Ethan. No doubt when I was talking about how psychology is the worst thing ever. Maybe the second worst thing ever. What did I think about Peugeot's answer to Father Eric's question? Thank you, Nathaniel. Well, since since I was hanging out with Father Eric the whole time, uh, Father Eric did not do the best job of framing his question. And Peugeot's answer was fine, but it did not actually get at what Father Eric was trying to get at. And that was probably Father Eric's fault, according to him. Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to get people to see something that they're not ready to see yet. And again, I think that's if Father Eric's trying to point in a direction and Peugeot's not ready to see that direction yet, and so it takes a lot more framing. This is what I was talking about with my question. My original question was going to tie in a bunch of things. The framing's the most important part. The words are secondary. I know that's backwards from what people think. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to get a good straight answer to questions unless they're framed correctly, and it's hard to frame things correctly. Like it's just hard. Anselman, the Flying Scotsman, indeed, except he wasn't Scottish, which really sort of Sally Joe, an unmentored poor young boy. Exactly, Sally. He really was unmentored. It was clear that he was just kind of floating in the wind, and that's sort of too bad. And yeah, Anselman giving kilt wearers a bad name. He was. He was. Yeah, he did other stunts too. It was it was interesting. Anselman, have to go. Got earlier eyes. Okay, man. Best wishes, Anselman. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. IXNon. Peterson starts psychological stuff because he wants to understand something. He retreats to Jungian mumbo jumbo. Jungian, yeah, well, uh, you don't know Jung, do you? Peterson doesn't use any of Jung's mumbo jumbo. He could get into that if he wanted, but he doesn't. Actually, sticks to Jung's more reasonable work. He has strayed into mumbo jumbo territory in the past, but he usually kind of says like, "Oh, I don't understand that." But he says this, and it certainly seems to be true, right? A lot of people stray into that with Jung. A lot of what Jung says is right, just like Freud. I mean, these people are not necessarily wrong about the stuff they're talking about. That's for sure. And that's sort of parcel of the issue is you get sort of really wrapped up, I'll say, in Jung. My problem with Jung is the reason why I won't read him is because I don't know where he went wrong. I know he went wrong, but I don't know where. Uh, and so that makes him dangerous, right? At that point, like it's dangerous. You know, Jung was doing something. I don't understand it. So that makes it dangerous to engage with the stuff because you don't know when to cut it off. When does Jung stray into crazy talk? I don't know. But he gets a lot crazier than anything Peterson ever touches on, which I find amusing. Like it would be interesting to hear Peterson's private thoughts, we'll say, on some of Carl Jung's more out there stuff, like how the ages are actually correlated to the constellations, like that. You know, are we in the age of Aquarius? What does that mean? That's a really interesting set of questions. Peterson doesn't seem to touch that with a 10-foot pole. So you know, Matthew and Jung is a Kantian and a Gnostic. Yeah, JP pushes him beyond the Kantian veil. It's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah, look, if you take the good stuff from where it's at and use it, I've got no beef. Like I'm cool with that. That to me is perfectly okay, right? Like that's fine, right? So look, I think that's it. I'm all caught up. That's most of what I wanted to say about my sort of week wrap up. So if you'd like to join in, I'll post the link and I'll pin it on Navigating Patterns where I can do so. Can't really do it anywhere else. Feel free to kind of hop in. But yeah, it's been you know been a long couple of weeks without a stream, and I'm just running into a lot of stuff, a lot of patterns. I mean, this whole leadership thing, man. I'm gonna have to do a video on leadership soon. Yeah, that's definitely coming. I, I There was a lack of leadership. There's a lack of leadership everywhere in the world. There's definitely a lack of leadership at the summit. For and people that were there, some of the people that were there needed it. They needed more leadership than what they were getting. And it like that's not really a criticism. That's just we're living in this age of gnosis, where yeah, we have this problem with leadership for sure. We don't understand what it is. It's not enchanted for us. The world isn't enchanted. Everyone's sort of living on this flat plane of existence where you know they're not engaging with the complexity all around them and the imperfection. Like the problem with complexity is there's a lot of imperfection. We want things to be sort of easy in a certain way, and we don't have that. Sally Joe, and yet the leadership was 100% better than anywhere else in the entire Peterson sphere. That is correct. There was way more lead. It's a good point, Sally. There was way more leadership at the Symbolic World Summit than there was anywhere else. There was also um, a lot better structure. It was a lot better managed. It was really well managed, actually, for its size. It's huge, absolutely huge. Things went remarkably well. And by the way, if you haven't heard Dirt Poor Robins, awesome. That like listen to them on an album. They're the same live. Like no difference. Unbelievable. Very rare. I've heard bands like that before, but it's very rare. Good stuff. Really good stuff. Sally Jones. So go cry about that one because we should all weep. We all should weep. We all should weep that we can't manage better leadership than the Symbolic World Summit. It was really good. It was very well run. I was surprised at how smooth things went. They didn't go that smooth at Thunder Bay. Thunder Bay was fine. It was great, actually. Went smoother than I thought it would. But yeah, Symbolic World Summit went really smooth. But we're just suffering from a lack of sort of appreciation and understanding of leadership in the world. And that's no throwing no shade on the Symbolic World people. They did, to Sally Jo's point, a way better job at it than anybody else has done so far. And it was nice that we didn't have people there, sort of actively rebelling against that. Also, it was nice for me because a bunch of people, of course, I've never met, came up and said, "Thank you for your channel." And I was like, "Really? Oh, that's great." Including one guy, Sebastian. I don't know if Sebastian's out there, but and he's doing similar stuff in Spanish. And I was like, "That's fantastic. You should do that." Right? It's fantastic. Sally Joe, nothing is more smooth with volunteers. It was amazing. Yeah, the volunteers were amazing. It's sort of fantastic, right? Matthew, to be fair, it's not the easiest perennial problem, that of leadership. Yeah. Well, yeah. Leadership, when here's one of the descriptions I was giving to people, like the fundamental problem that we have, the reason why we don't understand, we're using all the right words. The reason why we don't understand leadership is because somebody says the term give up. And when you live on a flat world, on a flat plane of existence, you're just giving it out. And that means somebody else gets all of it and you have none of it. Is it right? It's opponent processing all the way down at that point. Because it's an equally distributed world. I mean, if we lived in a flat world, communism would be correct. It would actually correct. We don't live in a flat world though. And to give up, right? The leader gives up a bunch of things to be able to lead. It's a sacrifice in Christian language. We're using the right terminology, but we don't understand give up because we're seeing this flat world because it's easy for us in our heads. We're told we can understand things. So we're like, oh, I can understand the world. If you want to try to understand the world, you're going to have to flatten it quite a bit, probably that much. So that's part of the issue is we don't even understand leadership because we don't understand sacrifice. We don't understand giving things up. We don't understand trade-offs. We don't understand these things correctly. We think like, oh, I give up my time and I can never get it back. No, you give up your time. And maybe what you get back is something that you couldn't have done by yourself. Because that happens. It happened to me at the Symbolic World Summit. Ethan. Jung is ungrounded. Well, that's true. He has only his own merit and authority to rely on. Probably. As opposed to an institution or tradition. Yup. Very good reason not to trust him. I don't disagree, Ethan. We're not going to disagree on psychology evil. Matthew. And to be technical, yours, Sally Joe's definition is entirely a Christian definition, serving. It's not about definitions. It's about word use. Actually using certain words shuts people's brains off. For real. Language matters a lot. And when you listen extraordinarily carefully, maybe you can't. That's fair. I often find people think I said things that I did not say. And so people are clearly not hearing me. And that's fine. I think listening to people is super hard, actually. Everybody says, oh, you just listen better. Really? I don't think people can just do that. The secular language is important because their brains don't shut off. This is why Peterson is successful in a way that looks like evangelicalism to Christians, but is not. So when Paul Vanderklay says that Jordan Peterson is, he doesn't say this exactly, but he actually does say this, effectively the second coming of Billy Graham, he's wrong. He's just wrong. I understand that if that's the only frame you have to understand what he's doing in, that's where you go. I get that. It's also wrong. Importantly wrong. When you meet with success, say in Christian circles, and look, the symbolic world people are in Christian circles. They're almost all Christians. Almost all of them are Orthodox, in fact, but whatever. Fair enough. Like, do your thing. Like, it's great. I loved it. I don't change anything for me or based on anything I say at all. Please ignore everything. That's fine. That's not my mission. I'm concerned about meeting crisis people, not the crisis of faith people. I have a video with Paul Vanderklay about the difference, or I can go into it someday too on here maybe. But there is a difference, and there's a huge difference. And the people that are more in trouble, the people that never had any chance at engaging in religious thinking, religious language, religious concepts. Right. The secondary people are the ones that lost them. They had them and they lost them. That's crisis of faith. And it's important. I think it's really important because it takes a very very small number of people to drag things down, a very large number to create and keep things revivified. And we don't appreciate that. Like the pull of entropy is real. Ethan, try to avoid things that require you to make 100% of the judgment. Man, Ethan, this is why I love you, because you just come up with this brilliant stuff. Yeah, try to avoid things that require you to make 100% of the judgment. Yeah, it's ridiculous. You can't do it anyway. Can't do it anyway. Sally Joe, lead is essentially different than authority. Yeah, well, leadership and authority are different. They can be co-located, but they're very rarely are they co-located. Often the leader is listening to an authority or authorities, and that's how they're informing their leadership or forming their leaders, informing their leadership. Yeah, it takes a village, really. Ooh, there's some meat. I would think of leadership and authority as very near. They're not. They're completely separate. And they should be. Like, man, the person that can lead and be an authority is a rare bird indeed. And that's why we have myths to talk about them. I mean, that's why the intelligentsia or the intelligentsia class is so important, right? Because they do convey authority. But you know what? It's the leader that has to look back and say, understand that you're an authority and that you're an expert and that you have specialized knowledge. But that specialized knowledge should not be democratized or spread out through the world. Not everybody should wear a mask, Dr. Fauci. Understand that you're a specialist, but you're wrong about that. Don't listen to experts. I've said this before. Like, you have no business listening to experts. Leaders should listen to experts and make decisions and take responsibility for those decisions about whether or not and to what extent those experts should be listened to. Can't listen to all the experts. First of all, they don't agree. Problem number one. A leader can filter that for you. Secondly, they're often wrong, even when they agree, especially when they agree. Ironic, isn't it? Third of all, you can't do that. I'm sorry. People claim to be experts and know nothing all the time. Somebody could come up to you and go, hey, let me tell you about the intimacy crisis. I don't think they're an expert in that. Okay? People do that now. Now, by the way, it's happening. It's very hard for you, a non-expert, to tell who's an expert and who isn't. It's just hard. Maybe you shouldn't have to. Maybe you shouldn't be able to burden yourself with that. Maybe that decision should be made for you. And look, it's a sink or swim sort of situation for sure. Absolutely. It's almost like we live in a fallen world or something. The world's imperfect or who knows. But maybe you can't do that. And maybe you shouldn't have to. Many people lead without authority of any kind, and many people are in positions of authority and cannot lead because they actually cannot. Oh, that's true, Sally Joe. That is true. Why don't you say more since you're here? Welcome.
Hi. Yeah, I got tired of typing. I just want to sit here and draw dragons and listen to the stream and not be on the stream.
Do you want to tell the other half of my little story about Skirt Boy there?
Oh, I feel like it's better in legend without me talking about it.
I will put it in legend on Sunday for you. You don't have to engage.
The thing about the poor ignorant youth is like, because I have to do it and I have chick brain, I don't just dissociate into that box of total win. I have to go into how sad I am that those conditions existed. Like, for him,
I agree.
For his mother, for society as a whole. So it's not a win. It's Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I understand so little. I don't know how I understand leadership and people don't.
No, you were in the military.
I guess.
You were exposed to it.
It's not
You're
like
exposed to good leadership and bad leadership and a system of leadership, and you get to see the success. I mean, the military is not, they're really good at it. They're not perfect at it by any means.
No. I mean, actually, it was a lot of mediocrity. And it was the mediocre stuff that was actually the best. Oh man, I had this staff sergeant, and he said he wanted to be called Sergeant Cookie. Like, his last name was Cook, and he liked being called Cookie. And he was a chunky little analyst man who was always like, he would make his PT test, like he would make it. That was it. That was all that was going to happen there. And his whole theory about stuff is he had this like positivity that was uncrushable, and that was his entire leadership strategy. So if he needed paperwork signed, he would go in directly after any formation in a completely squeaky uniform with his bottle of water, and he would just sit there at command happily until the paperwork got signed. And they'd
Really?
be, Sergeant Cookie, don't you got stuff to do? He's like, nope, this is all I'm doing. Just getting Jameson's leave signed. And they're like, the commander's not going to be in for hours. He's like, that's okay. I'll just be here. And I, as a young soldier, did not enjoy this man. I took fake smoke breaks for like 8 months once because I needed breaks from Sergeant Cookie. And then one day he came down to the smoke pit and he was like, you're not smoking. And I'm like, I never said I was, Sergeant. I said I was going to take a smoke break, but I didn't say I was going to smoke. And he's like, oh, thank goodness. I was afraid I'd driven you to smoke.
He knew all along.
No, he didn't.
Wow.
He didn't know. He knew I was going out to
No, he knew you were getting away from him.
Oh yeah, he knew I was getting away
That's
from
amazing.
But no negativity. Never. And later, like way away from that, he was an amazing person. He really was. He really tried to help people. And his strategy, no more grapes. None. His strategy about just staying positive no matter what was not bad. And there were several sergeants like that I didn't like them at all. When they actually were in my... No. All right.
Uh-oh. We'll move Sally away. There we go. There you have it, folks. You might see a good leader and not like them. That happens. That could happen. But people are very confused about leadership in the world. It's really sad. I don't know why. I think it has to do with flat world. And if you equate leader with power or something stupid and you have the postmodern top-down power from above narrative in your head, yeah, you're not gonna understand. Matthew, well put. And optimally wield the authority's input. Yeah. Look, somebody has to filter the authority and find out, are they an authority? If they're an authority, are they right about this? If they're right about this, what needs to be done? Because look, an expert is always going to say everybody should wear a mask. No matter how many scientific papers way before anything happened said that's dumb. Because we did have those, by the way. Oh, you can say, well, they're not very expert if they didn't read it, whatever. You know, you chose the guy at the top of the CDC or whatever. So you know, submit to imperfect. Take responsibility for shortcomings without looking inferior to his subordinates. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. Some of them do. I think people take responsibility the same way every time, right? Which is to say, yeah, I did this, I screwed up, and it is what it is. And hopefully, part of taking responsibility is repenting when you make a mistake. You know, mea culpa's a good start, though. And if you can't even do that, then there's a problem. And it doesn't just apply for leaders and leadership. It applies for everything. Like if you can't say, "Hey, I screwed up," and move on, you're not learning. Everybody talks about, "Oh, I'm a lifelong learner," and then every time they make a mistake, they're like, "I didn't make a mistake. The stupid thing did the stupid." You're not a lifelong learner. You're an asshole. That's just sorry. Just yeah, lifelong learner is one of those key phrases that I'm like, "Oh, this person's a narcissistic jerk." First thing I think. I try not to act on it, right? Because I might be wrong. Because sometimes people make mistakes or they use words because they're fashionable or they use them correctly when everyone else is using them wrong. But oh yeah, oh yeah, you'd be shocked, utterly shocked if I could explain to you all the things that trigger me and put me on edge. And that it's not a big deal. Because I don't treat people differently just because I have a presumption. You have to have presumptions about people. You can't walk through life with your guard down. You'll end up getting hurt badly or killed. And that's the problem. So, Matthew, laugh my ass off. My first grade teacher taught me that notion. I wrote a poem about lifelong learning. Yeah, I think it's kind of a given. Most people continue to learn things throughout their life. I'm a human. I'm a lifelong learner. Yeah, okay. Whatever, dude. Why are you virtue signaling to me? That's my question. What do you mean by learning? I have a video on that, by the way. Uh, isn't that the last one I released? Learning and education. Yeah, it was a good video. So yeah, I mean, this flat world stuff it destroys our conception of leadership. It destroys our conception of everything. Really, destroys our conception of the value of poetry, concepts that will say this is one of the problems, right? Concepts that are easy for Christians to understand are impossible for non-Christians to understand. Technically, that's the issue. They're just impossible notions. I don't know what else to say. They're impossible notions. What does that mean? It means that they don't have the cognitive capacity because they don't have the framing to understand certain things. I saw an interesting billboard. We'll say it wasn't aimed in the right direction, but I like the billboard anyway. On the way back from Florida back to South Carolina, and it said, "God created." It's like interesting. Of course, it's done by this group that is, anti-evolution or whatever, which is quite unnecessary. But I like the starting axiom. There was a creation. Deal with that first, then we'll move on to these quote philosophical questions that aren't solved by quote philosophy or psychology. By the way, and again, that's sort of the deep problem, right? We have these issues that aren't being resolved. They're not being resolved by these systems. And ancient Greek philosophy wouldn't have been so bold as to claim it could solve justice. I mean, the Republic is quite clear about this. See my book on Plato's Cave, by the way. Not my book, my video on Plato's Cave. The Lie of Plato's Cave. I'm gonna do probably 2 more videos on the Republic. I gotta do a little more. I gotta do more research again, of course, but I'm gonna do book 8, the middle of book 8, just the part about democracy and tyranny, because I don't know why no one's mentioning this to you, but Plato went over this. Look around. Plato already talked about everything you see around you right now. It's all in there. It's in the Republic. Nobody talks about it. I don't know why. No idea. I'm going to talk about it. That's going to be my one of my new videos. We'll see how quickly I can get out videos. I'm still barely recovered from Symbolic World Summit. Was overwhelming. So many people there. Wonderful people. I love them all, but not enough time with that many people. But it was such a good event. Not a flat world there. Very rich. That was the other thing. Like you're just soaking in people talking about symbolism and depth, and you can get overwhelmed real quick in that sort of environment. And sometimes you end up in a situation where your brain is just not working anymore. like I did. Luckily, I got to go to the beach. So sitting on the beach for too long and getting burned. Um, that's the thing. Didn't expect to do that, but these things happen. Not a bad thing necessarily. Um, the healing shrine did not help with the burns, but that's okay. To be fair, I wasn't burnt when I went there, so yeah, it's weird how all these threads that we've been talking about for 4 or 5 years now, um, as a result of John Vervaeke's meditation series. So, again, thanks, John. Are sort of coming together, and people are hitting this stuff, and they're hitting it hard. They're just running into the wall of meaning crisis, if you want to think of it that way. They're running into the end of things like their political framing, right? I like Carl Benjamin and Tim Pool were on this years ago, before the fake news virus scamdemic. Politics is downstream of culture, downstream of culture, downstream of it's the projection at the end when everything has already happened. And so you're not going to fix things by changing up the politics. That's not gonna fix the thing. Whatever the thing is, it's not gonna fix the thing. Not to say that you shouldn't try or it won't help, but it's not a solution. And so you have to be very careful with that and take it kind of seriously because it's important. It's important to know. Yeah, you're voting for the guy, and whatever thing that you thought was going to happen when your guy or your party got control didn't happen. That just means you have a bad frame. It's not hard. Like the way you thought about the world was wrong. Move on. Be a lifelong learner. Figure it out. You were wrong. Or whoever told you that was going to work was wrong. And the number of people that just don't know things that they think they know is just like everyone, right? People are very wedded to the notion in this age of gnosis that they know something. And the odds that you know what you think you know are pretty low, actually. Most people don't know most of the things they take for granted. And they don't understand how the world works because the world is complex. I do have slides for that. I'm going to go over simple versus complicated versus complex at some point. Uh, that will be coming soon. I do have to sit down and do some more work on that. Ethan, democracy of government of the people, by the people, for the people. But the people are retarded. Yes, that is the problem. Democracy doesn't work. We know this. I don't know why we keep having this argument. Democracy already failed. Let's stop trying it. The United States is not a democracy. It's a democratic republic for a reason. The founding fathers wrote extensively about why it's not a democracy. They knew better. They were smarter than you. No, really. They're much smarter than you. They're much smarter than you and probably all the people alive today combined. Really. I don't know what to tell you. They had a bead on it all. Probably because they read Plato correctly, unlike everybody since, apparently. They were. I kind of went over this. I've got a talk on the English Revolution with Adam, and it's probably a uniquely United States thing because, in one sense, we knew we needed a king or a head is probably a better way to say it. But we dispersed, we'll say, the kingly power throughout 3 different structures, right, and called it a government. There are 0 other governments like that, by the way. 0. A lot of people try to copy. They can't. They don't understand. No one in Europe understands the U.S. system at all. They're just coming from a philosophically different space, right? Europe is very top-down power from above, very much. England is sort of split in the middle, right? And then we sort of perfected the English Magna Carta, instantiated in a text, changed the government to be like that. The reason why England has a parliament is because of the East India Company. And that's the problem. Like, look, we talk about, oh, corporations are taking over government. It's way better now than it was back then. Way better. The East India Company owned everything and controlled everything in England. And they were larger by sheer power, by military force or anything than any other country for a while. And you think Apple being big is bad. I mean, Apple being big is the worst thing ever, but different reasons. They're not that big. Standard Oil, not that big. East India Company, huge, huge company, huge company. Lots of control over lots of things. Ethan, monarchy is the only solution, but we need first to build a throne for the king and let it sit vacant for a few hundred years. Interesting idea, Ethan. Interesting idea. I don't know if I agree with that, but I am intrigued. We'll have to have a at length talk on the Discord about that for sure. I do miss our book club. Yeah, we got to really dive into justice. When we went through the Republic, we should pick another book and maybe do one. So we'll see if Danny's around and he can join us again. That was really good. I do feel brilliant for two things. A, I didn't go to college. Second best idea I've ever had. Best idea I ever had was not reading the Republic alone. Oh, for that, I feel like a genius. I will take all genius credits for that. That was a good idea. It's a really good idea. I can feel smart for that one. There's no way you can interpret that book by yourself. Just no way. There's so much depth to it. I mean, I'm sure we only touched on a small percentage of it, but it was a good run. Yeah, some of this stuff is just forbidden knowledge. Forbidden knowledge is a real problem. It's one of the driving forces in the Republic. Did anybody tell you that? Probably not. The Republic is about the importance of forbidden knowledge and how to deal with it. That's in the Republic. That's a theme in the Republic. It's a harder case to make, so I'm not really inclined to make a video on it. Although, if people scream loudly enough, I might go and dig in and do the research. That took a lot of work. That's kind of buried in the beginning of the book, and it comes up, as the book as the manuscript unfolds. The democracy into tyranny stuff is a section in book 8. That's much easier to do, right? Or the end of the book. I'm gonna do the end of the book. I'm gonna do democracy into tyranny, and I'm gonna do the end of the book, end of the Republic. So fascinating. I'm never gonna not be pissed off about the end of the Republic. Not about the end of the Republic, about people reading the Republic, looking for certain things, reading the end of the Republic, and not getting the message because there's a clear message. It's couldn't be any more clear. Actually, it's not even like street sign clear. It's more like brick wall clear. Like you just hit that brick wall again, dude. Like brick wall. I used to have this trope I did, especially when I was younger. I used to call it the red brick wall of reality. That's how I think about reality. There's a red brick wall, and you keep bashing your head into it over and over again. Stop bashing your head on the red brick wall of reality. It's doing the same thing over and over again, and you're expecting a different result, right? Definition of insanity, right? Same principle, same pattern, right? It's all a pattern. That's all we're talking about here on navigating patterns. These little patterns that come up. I think it's weird to me that people don't see this stuff, but they don't. Clearly, they're kind of missing it. We got a little bit of that at the summit, right? People sort of missing very clear messages, but the hosts were, speakers rather, were very gracious, and they did such a good job. I mean, everything was so well done. And yeah, we'll be talking about that. I think the time is going to be 3 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. I gotta double check my thumbnail image. I might have to fix it, but I got a thumbnail image half ready. So I'll post that up on StreamYard, maybe tonight before I go to bed. Maybe tomorrow after I wake up, we'll get that stream scheduled and ready. And you can hear 3 people who attended, maybe 4, talk about the summit and what we thought. And different perspectives. Some of us took the universal history path, which obviously was the best path because I took it. Um, some of us took the artist path because artists. Um, obviously, universal history is better. You get this big 6-foot something Texan, right? Giving it, or you could take the artist path with this little pipsqueak French Canadian. I don't know. It seemed like an easy decision to me. I love Jonathan Bishop, actually. He's great. He did disappoint me at Thunder Bay, right? First question I asked him was, are the French Canadians going to take over the world and fix everything? And he was like, no. I was like, no, don't crush my dreams. My people are supposed to be the chosen. They're supposed to save the world. And he just completely flattened it all. I'm like, no, I want my people to rise and save the universe. But he just said, nah, they're too scattered and confused. I was like, no. So yeah, I mean, that's it. That's how I make my decisions in life. 6-foot Texan, pipsqueak French Canadian. Not hard. Not hard. Go with strength. Strength. So yeah, it was interesting. I had to shake Richard Rowland's hand, which is excellent. I got to reach out to him on Twitter. Of course, I can't because he doesn't let just anybody talk to him for some reason. So yeah, if you know Richard Rowland, tell him to open up his DMs to me, please. He wanted me to DM him, and then I was like, I can't DM him. Why? No. I was very disappointed. I cried. I'll get over it though. Ixnon, they're too French. I don't know about that. I think they're too rebellious. They're definitely not French. The French have destroyed the world, unfortunately. That's why my ancestors left. It's the only logical, rational, reasonable, spiritual explanation. Why would you leave a place like France, which gorgeous weather, to go to be in an unlivable place like Canada and hunt beavers in the woods? Why? With no women. Why would you do that? Because the Parisians suck that badly. That's the only explanation. Yeah. So, on the other hand, you're also rebelling. Good Catholic presence over there in France. So, yeah, one of these days I got to explore why and people have talked about this a little bit, including Peugeot, why the Catholic Church just kind of dissolved overnight in French Canada, because that is a mystery indeed. That would be worth understanding, because that might be tied into the meaning crisis stuff, which obviously I think is not the meaning crisis. I think is the intimacy crisis. And I think actually framing it as the intimacy crisis in the age of gnosis is going to solve a lot of problems in terms of trying to understand what is happening with the quote meta crises. Boy, I hate that word meta. Oh, I want to just murder everybody that uses it. With all the crises that are happening, because I think they're all related to the same thing, right? Which is lack of understanding of the quality of relationships. Quality is on the vertical axis. So this gets back into the flat world. You flatten the world, you remove quality, and you favor quantity because it's all you can do. But it won't work. And you look, so an hour before the stream, I was listening to the Critical Drinker, because everybody should listen to the Critical Drinker. And what are they talking about? There was a clip. It was on his Clips channel. I forget what it's called off the top of my head. But basically, he was talking about Disney. And Disney's strategy is, according to Bob Iger, who, by the way, you might as well have horns and a tail. We're going to focus on fewer films so that we can make better films. And the commenters were pointing out, just reducing the quantity of films will not necessarily improve the quality of your films. So this stuff that we've been talking about for, like I said, 4 or 5 years now, everyone's moving in this direction. They'll all get here eventually. You hear a lot of the language, like I said, in this book, Poetic Knowledge. The language is all there. That was written in 1998. This isn't new. I'm not claiming it's new. I'm just claiming it's obvious. And it's not. It's bad on me. Yeah, it's remarkable the amount of language he used in the first page. I was like, this is all stuff we say all the time. It's all right here. Why did nobody read this book and listen to this guy? Um, the recovery of education. Yeah, I mean, you need poetic knowledge to recover education. I agree. I think Plato agrees too in the Republic, by the way, but longer argument. I could never do that video. That video about the Republic would be really hard to do because you'd have to do basically an overarching analysis of the entire work. And I don't think I'm even up to it. I don't even think I could do it. I don't think I could do it with help. I don't think I could do it. The Republic is a bear of a book. It really is. But the other two videos on the Republic I'll do. Yeah, if you haven't seen The Lives of Plato's Cave, you got to see that video. It's really good. I put a lot of time into that one. And I will do the book 8, Democracy into Tyranny, because you're just gonna hear Plato talking about now, and you're gonna be like, "Wait, that Plato said that?" You'd be like looking around, going, "Plato's talking about now. Look at the now everywhere. He's just saying exactly what's going on around us because he really is." And to me, the fact that every quote philosopher isn't saying that right now is the problem. Like, what did these people not read the book? I mean, it certainly seems like they didn't, or they read it and didn't understand it, or are they just cowards? Like, I don't know what's going on. At a certain point, you don't know why people who read the Republic sort of missed the point. There's so many points in there, like they're saying ridiculous things like, well, you know, Socrates, at least as Plato portrays him, is all about equality, and I'm like, I don't think you read the book. I think you missed. I think you missed the joke of the Republic, or one of the many jokes of the Republic. So one of the recurring jokes in the Republic is men and women should be treated completely equally in all things. And Glaucon's like, all things, and Socrates, the character Socrates, is like, yeah, all things. So should they you know I forget how they frame it. Basically, train together in the quote gymnasium or whatever. Is it yes? And because they should train together, they should do so naked, because the men train naked. Okay. He makes that joke because it's a joke. It's absurd. It's deliberately absurd. Like half a dozen times for real. It's all over the book, or all over the manuscript, all over many of the books. I don't know how people miss that that's a joke, that he's being absurd on purpose. But it's a joke, guys. It's a joke. He's using contrast to explain to you how stupid that idea is. Men and women are not equal. It's really funny too, because the psychologists have come back around to this, right? Well, men and women are equal, except men are more visually oriented, especially when it comes to mating. And women are less visually oriented when it comes to, oh, okay, so they're not equal. Is that what you're saying? Because that's what you're saying, whether you think you're saying that or not. And there's Plato going, duh. It's and everybody's like, oh, Plato was really all about equality. And I'm like, you didn't read the book. Like, you read something, but it was mostly in your head. It just cracks me up that no one gets the joke. I'm like, you're missing the best part. Plato's funny. Completely hysterical guy. Really out there. Next level comedy. And yeah, I mean, if you didn't get it, you didn't get it. Whatever, but like, it's pretty clear in the book. A lot of the book is contrast. It's high contrast book. Plato's Republic is a high contrast book. And going to Symbolic World Summit, high contrast, right? You're in Florida. It's winter, but it's not winter in Florida because Florida doesn't have winter. Right? Beautiful place. In this highly ethnic neighborhood. I guess Tarpon Springs is the largest Greek population in the United States, or something crazy, because of the sponge farming. Because all the sponge farmers from the Mediterranean, from Greece, went over to Tarpon Springs with good sponge farming. I have it on good authority. Thank you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth is in Italy, so we can't get her on our stream for Sunday. But yeah, sponges everywhere. Very Greek. Lots of Greek people. Greek woman didn't speak any English at all. It's amazing. Like, this is awesome. It's 2024. She didn't speak a word of English, and she grew up here. Fantastic. I'm all in. I knew people in Lowell who, yeah, I had this one Greek friend. He was a kid too. Like we were in high school together, and boy, you could tell he was Greek. He could barely speak English very well. He spoke Greek at home. You could tell he spoke Greek at home. Um, yeah, I love that stuff. I think it's fantastic. Having these ethnic and cultural neighborhoods, there's nothing wrong with it. You really get a good contrast in your society. A lot of people want the smooth, equal, even, right? But as I said in the beginning of the monologue, equality doctrine's killing us, man. It's terrible. It's the worst thing ever. It flattens the world. And then you can't understand leadership. You can't understand how to mentor a young man to not wear a freaking dress at an event and run in the hallways. Why why would you have to tell somebody that? And yet that's where we are. We need to tell people that. Um, and you can, and I'm not criticizing John Hurst. I love John Hurst. I think he's great. You can make a joke out of him jumping into the camera. But what are you doing? Come on, dude. Man up. Man up. And look, it's not a problem Symbolic World Summit at all. Again, it's not a criticism of Symbolic World Summit. This is the culture. This is what's happening. It's happening everywhere, in every domain. You're not in every domain. You don't see it. Fair. I get that. But it's happening in every domain. And it's going to continue to happen. How can you say that, Mark? You're not in every domain. Patterns, baby. Patterns. If you study enough history, you'll see the patterns. You'll see how these things weave together. You'll see that this is a pattern that's happened before. And it's a pattern that will happen again. It's a pattern that's happening right now. And we have to learn to navigate that pattern because we can't change it necessarily. At least not directly. We can change everything indirectly. This is where people have a problem. People want control and not influence. Or people want an outsized influence. Right? So they have the illusion of control. And you're not getting that. That's not going to happen. But you can do things in the world, and you should. And the things you do in the world should be higher. They should be higher towards the true, the good, and the beautiful. Mostly the good. If you had to pick one, pick the good. Truth, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of truth is boring. It's simple. It's obvious. It's easy. It's boring. It's not impressive. A lot of truth is just not impressive. And there's nothing wrong with that. You want simple, basic truths. You need them. It doesn't flatten the world, but it does give you a basis, a grounding, right, on which to stand so that you can improve. And keep things revivified, not just improve. I mean, as I did my mediocrity stream, if you haven't seen it, you should definitely watch the monologue. It's excellent. Look, fighting entropy, keeping things the way they are, is work. And it's good work. And it's hard work. And it should be lauded. The guy who keeps your electrical going, my internet went out earlier today about 4 or 5 times. I was like, what's going on? Yeah, I was like, no, the internet's not working. I'm going to die. I did not die, as it turns out. I just don't need the internet. But yeah, I mean, the people that keep that infrastructure running, if you knew, and I'm not claiming that I know, but I have a better understanding this than most. One of my best friends used to run an ISP, internet service provider, back in the day. If you knew how many pieces of miles of wire and fiber and how many pieces of equipment it takes to run like a network in a small town, across a small town, you'd be like, how is this working at all ever for any length of time? It's a good question. It's actually kind of a miracle. There's a lot of complexity going on there. Ethan has a question. Ethan, why do people keep confusing Plato as a Gnostic? Well, Ethan, I think I can answer that. I think that what you're seeing right now is a bunch of people who are using Plato, right? In some fashion. We may know some of them. Oh, this tea is awesome. It's smoky. To justify their project. So they're saying, oh, Plato said this, and therefore, like I went over one earlier, right? This equality between men and women, which Plato is obviously against, clearly, for obvious reasons. And that project that they're doing is Gnostic. And so they go, oh, you're using Plato to justify your Gnostic project. Most often, by the way, that project seems to maybe not start out, but always end with, let's start our own religion. It could be a pure coincidence. It's not. But yeah, it's always this justification, right? Whether they call it, quote, Neoplatonism, which does not exist, by the way. It's just a fantasy that people want to have. Or it's, oh, but in the Republic, it says, and that's usually a bad reading. The Republic, obviously, went over that a million times. I'll go over it a million more because apparently people don't know how badly they're being lied to about what Plato's Republic actually says. How many things people are leaving out. Plato dealt with children and forbidden knowledge and learning, education. That's what the cave's about. So it's easy for people who believe they're in a morally superior position, and we went over this earlier in the stream, to say, oh, that's Gnosticism because you're using Plato to do it. But I would say, and I will say in a future video, if you read the end of book 10 and you didn't like read Christianity as the next step in there, you've got like some kind of mental illness for real. Because there's some kind of thing wrong with your brain. Like, I'm sorry. Plato couldn't be more clear. How he does it too is sneaky. I mean, it's just great. Like, that's fantastic. So I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I can see why people who want to be superior or think they have the upper hand will go, Plato must be a Gnostic, because all these people who are instantiating Gnosticism and Gnostic occult practices are justifying it with Plato. That's why they're confused. They're confused because people misread Plato and are misusing Plato. And then they're taking a morally superior position, which please don't do that. There's no reason. Just call out evil. It'll be fine. Maybe don't only call out evil, but certainly start by calling out evil. It'll be fine. Also, Christians are for lions, so we're going to lose a few. It's going to happen. It can happen either way. I mean, do it voluntarily. Go out with a bang. They're focused on the wrong things, right? It's easy to get focused. It's easy. So I read it was a post, it was a Twitter post. I think it was today, actually. It was earlier today that I read this Twitter post. But they were basically saying, don't blame the Enlightenment for all the bad things. I'm like, yeah, certainly not the Enlightenment. Blame Protestantism, because that's my new thing, and I can back that up. But I'll die on that hill, or actually, you'll die trying to get me off that hill, for sure. When you use Enlightenment thinking, right, and you take it out of the frame it was intended to be in, which is a very religious frame, you can sit there and cry that that Enlightenment thinkers were deists, whatever ridiculous thing you made up to call them that isn't real and won't ever exist, all day long. But at the end of the day, the Enlightenment thinkers grounded all of their, quote, philosophy, if indeed it is a philosophy, and I might have bones with calling Enlightenment a philosophy. Certainly not in the ancient Greek sense. It is not. Then it doesn't work. Yeah, the Enlightenment thinking doesn't work if you take it out of the frame. In the same way that if you don't take the founders of the United States seriously when they say none of this works without a common belief in God. Like, no, really look up the founding fathers' papers. If you don't take that seriously, and then bad things happen because they've lost the common grounding or the common what do you want to call it? The common aspiration higher to something higher, because we're not living in a flat world, then the whole thing falls apart. Really? What an interesting observation. Wonder where I can learn more. Oh, book 8. The middle of book 8. Plato's Republic. Yes. That's the funny part about all these threads that don't look attached are all the same thread. They're all the same thread. They're all the part of the same pattern. This is what's so puzzling to me. I'm like, you guys aren't seeing this, huh? Really? You're missing this. This is what you're missing in the world because you're too focused on Jordan Peterson's freaking jacket and whether or not it has a freaking cross on it. But that's your go-to. We've got child trafficking rings, and you're worried about Jordan Peterson's freaking jacket. Really? And listen, you need your priorities straightened out. You need some relevance realization from John Vervaeke, although he needs some too. We all could use better relevance realization, but yours is way off. If that's what you're worried, Jordan Peterson is a good guy. Whatever else you want to say about him, I got my critiques. I try not to air too many of them publicly because I don't think that's appropriate. What the hell do I know? He's being super successful at what he's trying to do. Good for him. And he's doing good in the world. Double good for him. I would say just doing anything that you intend is good for you, but yeah, doing goodness. Thanks. Oh, Ethan. Well, I assume that made sense to you and that it answered your question. That's good. Yeah, I think that's we're not focusing on the good. And I think that there's a technical reason why we're not focusing on the good, or at least we're not focusing on the good correctly or something. That's because we're afraid, we'll say unconsciously, that we don't know how to spot it anymore. And that's flattening the world too. Right? And we're like, well, who are you to judge? All right, I'm a human, and in order to act, I have to judge. See my 3 live streams on discernment, judgment, and action. In that order, please. Discernment, judgment, action. I'm a human. I have to judge to live. I have to live because this is too bad I was born. Sorry, guys. Don't know what to tell you. So I am me to judge, and that's going to happen. What I judge and how I judge it is something that I need to work on every day, and hopefully I do. Different problem, though. Don't tell me. First of all, don't tell me anything because the odds that you'll do well with that strategy are 0. Don't tell me I can't judge something or I shouldn't judge something. Go to hell. How's that? We'll start. You do that first, and I'll do your thing second, or never. Just how it's going to work. If your plan is to tell me what to do, you need a new plan. I'm just saying, especially if you're going to moralize at me. It ain't going to work. Not going to work. On the other hand, if you're Father Eric, I will listen to you. I will submit. Right. But if you're average Joe Schmo on the street, that actually came up with Father Eric a few times, driving him around. And he's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't care. I'll do whatever you tell me. I just, first of all, I didn't have the brain. I'm Symbolic World Summit, totally overwhelmed brain. Right. But second of all, like I really was like, I will drive you around wherever you want to go. I'm okay with that as a good strategy. Worked out well. We did wonderful things that I wouldn't even have thought of. Yeah, we started doing a din, which is cool. That's apparently the Gaelic word for Edinburgh. Who knew? I should have mentioned that earlier. Sorry, Anselman. You'll see this later. Yeah, super important. It was a fun little town, fun little coastal town in Florida. Ethan, I definitely see Plato as a sort of proto-evangelist. Well, I would say there's a way in which the end of Book 10 leads you to the open-ended conclusion, the next step of which should be completely obvious given our historical perspective. Whether it was completely obvious to Plato is irrelevant, and probably impossible to determine and unnecessary to determine because we have the answer. That's what I would say about that. Ixnon, I'll tell you things to hear your judgment on them. Oh, okay. Tell me whatever you'd like. And if I have a judgment, I'll give it. There's a lot of things I don't even have opinions on because the hell do I know? People get upset. I never understood people get upset. You have to have an opinion. You know how many times people told me I'd have to have an opinion on something? And I'm just looking at them like, bro, do you even know who you're talking to right now? Me have because you think I have? I don't. Have you met me? Telling me what I have to do is not a good strategy. Like bad plan. New plan. You need a new plan. But yeah, I mean, if I have something, I'll give you my judgment or my opinion or maybe nothing, whatever I can do. Or I might decline. Sometimes I decline. I've had people play that game too. You have to tell me. Oh, I do now. Is that how the world works? Let me know how that works out for you. I have to tell you something? Really? That's how you think this world's gonna work? Not with me in it. And that actually came up at the summit. Somebody said something about a situation, and I said, okay, but here's the problem with what they want. They're on this planet with me. So I appreciate that they want something. In particular, they want something to go a certain way. But I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me. I am on this planet too, and you have to contend with that. I suggest you do it through cooperation and not opposition. But hey, if opposition it must be, bring it. I don't think it's a good plan for you. Even if you win, you lose because you're weak. Like the act of fighting weakens you. This is the thing that nobody accounts for with fighting. This is why strong words, I'm going to beat you up, I'm going to punch you in the nose, actually works, right? Because it signals to somebody what they're willing to do, right? And then what you can do is you can say, oh, you're going to punch me in the nose, huh? Like Pee-wee said it to me, I'm like, hey, you're never going to hit me. Not because I didn't think they'd take a swing, because I'm quick and I'm hard to hit. I'm just fast. Not as fast as I was because my illness really chopped down my nervous system, but I have fast twitch nerve fiber. You can look that up. I'm just quick. I'm just physically quick. So people would try to hit me and I'd just dodge out of the way and be like, what the hell just happened? I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, kid. You're a little slow. And they try to be faster because you can't try to be faster. There's some hard limit. And they learn their limits real quick because I could just dodge people. I think I've told the story before. There was a kid once when I was young who was throwing rocks at me and I using a 10-point blocking system. I knew my kung fu. And I'm blocking the rocks. And the kid's like throwing rocks as hard as he can and as fast as he can. And I blocked every single one of them. Not even a problem. Didn't even think about it. Like, yeah, you're pretty slow. It's not quite like the Matrix where he does the thing and he blocks all the shots from from Agent Smith's 2 arms with his 1 arm. Not quite like that. But also a little bit like that. When you're quick and you can see and you can move faster than other people, because some people can. Like this is a measured scientific phenomena. The world is just a different place for you. I think I've told you this before. Like I drop things and catch them with the same hand I drop them with before they hit the ground. All the time. No, when I drop things, I almost never drop anything. I almost never fall when I trip. I almost never trip. I almost never fall when I trip. I almost never drop anything. And when I drop things, I almost always catch them before they hit the ground. It's kind of amazing, actually. It's kind of cool. It's fun. I like being me. Being me is that's fun. It's fun. And you should like being you because there's all kinds of things you can do that I can't do. That's great. It's fantastic. You know what? I bet if we cooperate together, we could build a cool world. But we have to cooperate. We can't be all having our own YouTube channels and all doing our own thing and all having our own websites and writing our own articles. No, that won't work. We got to cooperate. Then we can build up. We can build bigger. We don't want to build the Tower of Babel, so maybe lots of us should be doing this in different groups. Maybe. That might work. Right? I know a lot of people talk about decentralization. Okay, let me explain something to you real quick. You do not understand decentralization at all, even a little bit. And everything you've been told about is a lie. Just saying. You know who doesn't understand decentralization? Me. You know why? Because I was there. I went through the computer revolution from centralization to decentralization. It ain't all what people say it is. It ain't all that it's cracked up to be. It ain't all that and a bag of chips. It just, no. There are serious problems. Let me give you a case in point. If you have a YouTube channel, I have a YouTube channel, and you look at your metrics, what you can do very easily, like without even trying, is find 3 different numbers for your views counts on your videos. Just like that. Doesn't matter if they're recorded or live, by the way. Why is that? Because it's a distributed, decentralized system. And when you have a decentralized system, you have synchronization problems with the numbers. Now, you can We can go tete-a-tete on the tech. You'll lose, but whatever. It's fine. Like, I actually know how to write all that. I've written all that code. I know how to write nothing. I've done it. Okay. Hours of desyncing numbers where the numbers are way off. They're off by like 7, 8, 10 between the three systems for hours. Okay. It's not as simple like, well, yeah, on the microsecond or the second scale, because it takes time to copy data from the East Coast to the West Coast. No, that's not it. Something else is going on. I know roughly what it is. I'm not going to explain it here ever, because this is Navigating Patterns and not my personal YouTube channel, which sucks, but feel free to look it up. It's very hard to explain. There's so many things that go wrong in software. It's just like insane. It's completely insane. Decentralization is not going to save the world. It doesn't solve the problem. The people that say that very often put things in a political frame and think top-down power from above, and therefore the president's the problem. Sure. And then when that doesn't work out, they go, oh, it's not top-down power from above, the president isn't the problem. There must be layers above the president. No, that's not how it works at all. Not that there's nothing above the president, but it's not a political or an ultra political substructure or superstructure above the president that's telling him what to do or usurping his power. That's not what's going on at all. And people get confused, right? They want an easy answer. Politics gives you an easy answer. Politics is about voting. It's not about anything else. Sorry. Politics is great for measuring and talking about voting, the influence of voting, the influence on voters, the behavior of voters given a certain influence or a lack thereof. That's all politics. Absolutely. Fascinating subject. Don't waste your time on this garbage. It's not false or wrong. It's not untrue. It's just boring and irrelevant. It's descriptive and not prescriptive and not predictive. And so the fact that politics exists is funny and interesting and fun and fascinating and detailed, but worthless to you. Unless you want to be in politics, and then it has some value. Don't be in politics. Ugh, barf. If elected, I will not serve. Jack Parr. Go look up Jack Parr. Funny guy. 60s, 50s, something like that. I don't know why I know that quote, but I guess it was a quote that my uncle told me at some point. Many times, of course. Why would anybody tell me anything just once when they could tell me many times? Then I'll remember it. Wouldn't that be a miracle? Oh my goodness. Look, no one wants to join me. All right. If no one's going to join me, then I'm going to wind things down. It's been 2 hours and I can't really go 2 hours after my big trips because I've just been on the road too much. Florida's not that far, to be fair. Texas was 13 hours each way. We did 2 days out and 1 day back. Lovely wedding. Lovely wedding. Fortunately, it was East Texas, right? We're just outside, east of Dallas. Thank goodness. Nightmare traffic. East Texas, bad traffic. Don't drive there. Love Texas. Got to spend the night in Texas. Got to eat real Texas barbecue at a real Texas place in Mesquite, Texas. That was cool. Florida's awesome. Always love going to Florida. Been to Florida a few times. Not enough times. Never moving there, probably. But love Florida. If I had $1 billion, I might move to the Keys. That would be fun. I really like the Keys. Keys are fun. Maybe a Caribbean island. Something like that. It's all been fantasies in my head. Almost got there once. But no. All my money's been stolen. So I'm just poor now. But I can afford to go to Florida once in a while. That's nice. Close enough. So listen, thanks everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. We will do a Symbolic World Summit, Tarpon Springs Rollup, retrospective, whatever you want to call it, on Sunday at 3 Eastern. I will set that up. I got to set it up on StreamYard here. I just didn't. Today's been a bit of a mess for me. Keep forgetting what the hell I'm supposed to be doing. I was barely able to organize my notes. If you didn't listen to the beginning. I had a really great time with y'all. I hope I was able to answer your questions. And I don't see any reason why I won't be doing a live stream next week. I don't know what my Easter plans are yet. But once I do, I'll let you know what the schedule is going to be there. Like I said, we're doing one on Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern. That's about the Symbolic World Summit. I don't have any recorded videos in the can. Maybe I should get on that this weekend so that I have stuff to, for you guys, because I got a bunch of stuff that I should be doing. I've just been caught up in legal paperwork, and when your lawsuit's done, it's not done. It's just awesome. So look, have a great week, everybody. I hope to see you next week. I hope you enjoyed this. Leave a comment, like and subscribe, do the thing, tell everybody how awesome I am, or how awful I am. Either one, whatever. There's no such thing as bad press. Have a lovely night.